I'm having a wonderful conversation before I pushed record with American composer Nan Schwartz in Hollywood, and I mean in Hollywood, as in her whole life. Am I wrong? I mean, your whole life, your family, your parents, the whole thing. It's like Hollywood film and television, and this is your profession as a composer, arranger, songwriter, hello, conductor. Have I left anything out?
Orchestrator,
Orchestrator, thank you.
teacher,
Uh,
time singer.
and on it goes. And this is the career in that very, very competitive and very, very busy industry called Hollywood film and television. Uh, Grammy winner, best arrangements for a Natalie Cole album, and I'm going to put up one of those excerpts when we get my review of your CD. We're going to talk about it in a minute up at performingartsreview.net. But five-time nominee. You've heard all this a million times. A seven-time Emmy nominee. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And we're talking from age 10. When
Well, I was singing professionally from a young age.
in Hollywood and so on. And your parents, give us a little rundown so everybody knows about your family and all that good stuff.
My parents were kind of famous in the big band era. My dad was the lead clarinet with Glenn Miller and created that Glenn Miller sound with the clarinet lead over the four saxes.
Which, by the way, you have never forgotten. Hello, go ahead.
And my mother was with Tommy Dorsey. She was one of the sentimentalists. So she had hits like Sunny Side of the Street and Chicago and others. And they came out west to LA, and my dad decided to get into the studio scene. My mom thought she was going to retire, but she was sort of lured out of domesticity because they heard that she was a good reader and great alto, and so she was sort of drafted into the studios, and she had a parallel career to my dad's. She was a
Hmm.
studio singer, and my dad was a studio musician. So I grew up around that uh, environment, and I think the most important element of all of that, in addition to them just being cool people to be around and their friends and all that, was the fact that they always played great music in the house. And it was either great jazz or it was great classical music. And I just got exposed to a lot of stuff that just has stayed with me, and I think hopefully has been part of my, um, my palette.
Which segues us into your first orchestral CD. Am I okay with that?
Yeah.
This is big. This is really big, I think. And you, by the way, you share it with the Australian composer Brenton Broadstock. We're going to ask. I'm going to want to ask. I hear it in the music, the simpatico-ness between you two. But I just wonder if there's a history there of friendship and collegiality. Why don't you answer that one right now?
Well,
How,
no, Brenton and I met in Vienna when we were recording the orchestral part of my album. We shared a commonality in that the conductor and producer of the record, Kevin Purcell, Australian himself, decided he wanted to champion both of us. And he knew Brenton's work, but he got a hold of my music, and I think he heard Angels Among Us and said, "Wow, this is great. Do you have anything else?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." So an album was born. He took a chance on me. He wanted to champion a new composer, and he chose me, and I'm very honored and flattered.
by the way, that is very interesting. I had no idea. So
Yeah.
I had no idea. Uh, and wow. So there you go. And now let me be corny for just a second, then we'll move on with this thing. Because I try to play hunches, and sometimes I'm just completely wrong. And you're going to slap me down on this one, I'm sure. But I know that artists, you'll agree with this, I'm sure, put things together very, very carefully. They're very organized. They have purpose. They have a beginning. They have a middle. They have an end. Okay, so here it is. It's just a thought. What I see in your share of this CD, by the way, the major share of the CD, uh, are four wonderful orchestral works with soloists. I'm going to ask you to list them for me in a minute because they're the best of the best. But here's what I see in terms of titles. Okay, this is where you get to slap me down. Aspirations, very early, absolutely stunning, incredible, amazing. I don't even know where to begin about discussing orchestration and everything else, and that is your expertise. But here we go. Aspirations, followed by perspectives. And somehow to me that means you reach a certain level above aspirations and you have a certain amount of perspective. Romanza, I don't know, you have a daughter. And then Angels Among Us, whatever, happy circumstance has brought you to this point? Am I all wet?
No, I mean the title's significant. Is that your point that the
That is
titles?
my point. Yeah, that there is a narrative, a sequential narrative in these four titles.
Well, yeah, and I could spend 20 minutes discussing that, but we don't have that kind of time. But yes, they are. I think titles are important, and so I think they reflected what I was going through at the time.
Very, very interesting. I love the order of it all. So I'm glad I asked that question. For me, that was a risk of just being just a complete jerk. So thank you very much. About film scoring, it's magic. It really is magic. But the whole art of, because I've known a couple, who are film scores, and what happens? You're delivered a piano score, let's say, and you said, okay, orchestrate this thing for a full symphony orchestra.
No, 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 no.
Oh, okay, okay, straighten me out.
Well, a film score is they come to you and say, no, write original music for our film. It has nothing to do with anybody's piano score.
I meant orchestration, I guess. That's maybe where I got
Oh,
lost in the words.
well, today's orchestration is different than the orchestration of 10 years ago or so, when people would come to give you a sketch, maybe, or sometimes, in my husband's case, he's a pretty well-known orchestrator in Hollywood, Conrad Pope, and
Yes. Wow.
and he was been known to get sheets of blank paper with the word blue on it, or happy, meaning that he had to compose the whole thing.
And not
Um,
not only that, but he had to be a master of the ancient art, which is, I hope I'm going down the proper path here, which is tonality and temperament, which they knew in the 16th century. In other words, happy. What key areas are those, and so on? And how do you orchestrate that? That's kind of what I was getting at, because I love your big, rich, gorgeous orchestrations. I'm asking because I'm a conductor. How do composers make decisions about here we'll have a sweeping horn quartet followed by, that's what I'm trying to get at.
You have, at least with me, I have melodic and harmonic ideas first, and then as I'm going along, I'm figuring out who's going to be playing it. But it may not be the first idea, although I do write with the instruments in mind. But that's kind of secondary. The first is to have the kind of the structure and the architecture and the bones
Mm.
of the piece in mind, and then the broad strokes, and then you start getting into details of who's playing what, when, how, and stuff like that.
Why don't we talk about all four pieces? If you could just kind of, somewhat briefly, run us down. This will give you an opportunity to introduce these wonderful soloists that are there. And by the way, this is a kind of interest. I think I don't know. Maybe have been in a closet too long of classical music, but I love this idea of, for example, in Aspirations, this broad, gorgeous orchestral palette, obviously written, uh, and so on. All that good orchestral stuff and all those, Shostakovichian excerpts and Ravelian moments, and then this incredible concerto in a free form with improvisation, and then somehow tying it all together and ending the piece. And you do that on more than one piece. I think that's almost a unique forms. You want to speak to that, and then give me some soloists?
Well, the Aspirations was written for a group called the New American Orchestra, which was sort of coming out of that Gunther Schuller third stream
Yeah.
um, idea, which is to blend the jazz and classical together.
Yeah.
So they were looking for these kinds of pieces, and I was commissioned to write one of them, and I did. It was the first big piece I had ever written, and I was a little, obviously, pretty daunted by it. And if it seems like I've been imitative, it's because I was young and I hadn't quite established my style yet, I suppose. But those were
Oh, but
influential.
I would allow me just to disagree. It's not about imitating styles. It's about absorbing the magic of certain things that must then, of course, be used again. It's as old as the Baroque literature. I'm thinking of that little Shostakovich excerpt. I can't quite remember where it comes from.
It's in the Fifth Symphony,
Fifth
where
Symphony. Well,
yeah,
you didn't steal it. You didn't really even homage it in a way. You just borrowed some of that stuff.
yeah.
That's what I
Well,
was getting at.
yeah. Thank you. Uh, so
So
anyway, that idea that they were looking for a kind of piece like that gave me the liberty to write the jazz section of that piece, because it needed to get to something like that in
yeah,
order to meet to be appropriate for that group that was playing it. and that was great because it just is really who I am anyway. So I was happy to do it.
You want to tell me about Johnny Mandel?
Oh, he's
Yeah,
my
let me
hero.
use it. Let me you take a little quote from your blog because I love it.
Yeah.
It says, "When I heard his evocative film score to The Sandpiper, I think subconsciously my career path was set."
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I was just young, and my dad brought the album home, and he had played on the soundtrack, and he said it was
That's neat.
one of the highlights of his career. And so I wasn't even old enough to see the movie. It was a racy movie, and it was a dumb movie, but I just fell in love with the music. We played it all the time, and it just, I thought, I didn't, I was too young, and I also a woman, so it didn't ever occur to me to even be a composer at that point in time. But I knew that I loved the sounds. And then later on, when I was sort of reevaluating my career path, well, if you read the liner notes, it talks about my broken leg and all that. And
Yes, the skiing accident.
yes, exactly. So then at that moment in time when this family friend said, what's your big dream? And I said, well, I would have liked to write, a score like the Sandpiper, but it's too late. I'm a woman and I've already gone to college. And she said, well, why don't you study privately and why don't you become the first woman? And so I just got fired up by that conversation, and sadly, no one wants the Sandpiper today.
You know, I remember the movie, and I must have been a teen at the time. I don't quite remember the score, but
Oh, you better
you
look
made me
it
want to
up.
go. I'm going to have to go look it up. And the other thing is, and again, I don't mean to be maudlin or dwell on these things. We're moving on, all of us, but you have indicated that even in your own consciousness, slap me around again if I'm incorrect, but you already even had a feeling that, oh, I'm a woman, I can't, at some point in your career. So what I'm trying to say is it's hard, 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 and you're a survivor, survivor, survivor. What is it?
Why am I a survivor?
Yeah, why
I
not?
think I had just enough success and encouragement from other people to know that I was on the right path and just to keep at it. If I had a lot of failures, then maybe I wouldn't be doing it. But I had successes and I had acknowledgement and what's the word? Validation through the awards and stuff like
Yes.
that.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, that's it. And also, I suppose, dare I ask, well, first of all, dare I ask about future projects? Can you tell me anything? Come on, give something away, something
I'm
big.
working on a musical right
Oh,
now.
you said that. Yeah, go ahead. Give us more on that one.
Well, I can't talk about the project itself. It's sort of top secret, but we're in the process of putting together that famous backers audition demo where they sell the show with the top 7 songs. So
Uh-huh.
I've written 7 songs with a wonderful lyricist named Lorraine Feather, and we're just hoping it's going to have some success. You never know, but it's been a whole new genre for me, and I've really enjoyed it.
Did I miss the title?
I didn't tell you because
I
I'm
see.
not at
See, you're
liberty.
not at liberty to do so. Okay, gotcha.
But if you want to check back with me in a month or two, I'll be able to talk about
Ooh, what a tease. Okay,
it. Yeah.
and finally, it's something about I think of this is going to be so corny, but honestly, I think about mountains to climb and the reasons to do so. I'm thinking of Bobby Kennedy, and he said because they're there. And part of me asks, all of this life that you've had, has there? I probably asked it even earlier, but has it been easy? Has it been okay? Have you even thought about it really? Because you come from this family that was so connected to you. I'm just so curious about that possible gorilla that we've mentioned a couple times anyway.
Wait, you mean the being a woman?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't think about that. I just try to. I think one of the reasons I'm sort of uh, going in so many different directions career-wise between orchestration,
Mm.
film and TV composing, Broadway composing, songwriting, doing all this is that when I have a lull in one area, I just move on to another area.
That's just good business
It sort of served
too.
me well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And also, it sort of was born out of the feeling of, oh, they think they know me, but they don't really know who I am. Let me show them that I can also do this. And so I've got that sort of competitive edge that makes me want to keep showing it, showing them.
Gotcha on that. And the reason I'm simpatico, here's my confession, and then we better end this, which is that I'm a conductor by training. I had a modest little career in Seattle. I'll tell
I
you
love
what.
Seattle.
Pardon? Oh, I do too.
My
Uh,
daughter just graduated from the University of Washington. I was up there quite a bit visiting her.
it's a beautiful, beautiful city, even as big as it has now become. I was there in the 70s and the 80s. But my point is that I just want to confess my consciousness about how easy it is to be a man.
Is it?
It is still, which is that I myself, as a conductor, I had a lot of trouble with women conductors for
Oh,
ridiculous, nonsensical reasons of sick head. See what I mean about prejudice? How it's just can be so ingrained, and it took me a long time to realize that this was nonsense. It's about, as you said earlier, talent and achievement and what you accomplish.
well, I think women conductors have made better inroads, as have women classical composers than women film composers. And I think
Interesting.
the reason there has to do with money,
Mhm.
because there's so much money riding on these films, and studios don't want to take a chance,
Mhm.
and so they just go with the basic. I mean, a perfect example is I lobbied very hard to get the score to 50 Shades of Grey, a rather seamy film about a seamy subject, but I thought, hey, I'm the target audience, and it should be a woman writing it, right?
Now you
Well,
mention it, yeah, I know of these. It's a series of novels, even, or something, or
yeah,
stories, or something like
they've
that.
made three movies, hugely successful, and
Yeah.
it's real, it's real B stuff. But nevertheless, I thought I could get this, and I could do it. And they hired Danny Elfman, and Danny Elfman is a sort of his style is nothing like, well, and I don't even think he wrote the music himself. I think he probably farmed it out to his team and all that, and he didn't care. But the point is that the studio needed a big name on that questionable movie that had a female director, by the way, and
Hmm.
some other people that were not tried and true. So they got a name composer to like give them security and make them feel okay.
Yeah.
Like,
Thus, I have heard from others in your neck of the woods, friends of mine that I know. And so it's treacherous, it's ruthless, it's airheaded, it's, am I in trouble yet? It's, so again, congratulations in
well,
particular.
well, thank you, but it seems like the world of classical music is full of pure-hearted people. Am I right?
I'll get back to you on that. Man, Schwartz, what a great pleasure chatting with you. I'm going to have a review up here, I promise,
Yeah,
of your CD.
but you really think of the album.
What did I really? I can tell you right away. Uh, Gorgeous, 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 gorgeous. I can't think of any other way to explain what a pleasure, including your colleagues' music. Just what a beautiful experience that CD is, let alone the other stuff that I'll be talking about.
Uh,
The
thank
other
you so
good stuff, by the way.
Okay,
Beautifully recorded, beautifully engineered. You understand, you know this. Yeah.
great.
And by the way, congratulations on also breaking down some barriers as a conductor. I forgot, we went there, but I didn't quite congratulate you on that.
Oh, thanks. I'm no competitive threat to you. Don't worry.
Oh, no, no, I'm retired now. I'm no threat to anybody.
Uh,
Okay, listen, thanks very much. I'll see you soon.
Thank you so much for calling.
Bye.